Shires is a traditional northern family firm. They've been in the sanitary ware business since 1939 and are one of the top 3 toilet manufacturers in Britain, with a turnover of £50 million. Now they want to design a new toilet, and they've asked Richard and Dick to help.
It was delayed.
Charles Kyriakou, the marketing manager of Shires, is the person in charge of developing the new loo. He wants it to be innovative and different, and he's hoping that Richard and Dick can bring a fresh perspective to the problem.
They're looking at it and they're going, well, it all feels much the same, you know. What makes this?
At the moment, Shires bathroom suites are middle to bottom end of the market. The Rosette, Medley, Naiad and Firenze. But they want to move up market, and to do that they need to come up with something very different.
You've got the brand there. The brand name is
the brand that men notice but women don't.
I'd like to show you 2 suites which we launched in July of this year. This is the Croft suite and this is the Abbey suite. It's got very much a country feel, country romantic type sector of the market.
A romantic toilet.
Little upstand, very cute basin, very feminine as well. Lots of shape and lots of design. I mean that's
Charles,
helps business a little.
You keep saying lots of design. What's in your head when you're saying design?
Well, we're talking about sort of the inside of this basin. If you can see, it's not just a conventional rounded basin. You've got these ribs coming in there. The ribs are reflected on the outside of the basin. It's not just a straightforward upstand.
Isn't that a fundamental dichotomy, though, that the more fuss and detail you put into it, the more difficult it looks to clean and look after?
There are certain nooks and crannies that we do try and avoid. Yeah. You're quite right.
Explain to me again about this differential drying rate. Insides are drying at a slower rate than the outsides, right?
Richard and Dick's first step is to see how Shires will manufacture the new toilet.
Yourselves, that you're consulted early enough in the design process?
We have an input, and the input is, can we make it at the price that they're going to sell it? Really, that's what it comes to. Right.
Alex Gemmell has been in the sanitary ware business for 40 years. He's Shires' director in charge of manufacturing. Every toilet manufactured today still performs exactly the same Herculean task it always has done, shifting hundreds of gallons of water and waste every week. And toilets are still made in the Victorian way too. 15 kilos of St Austell clay poured into a mould, dried to a tough ceramic, glazed and then fired. It's a labour-intensive craft, more dependent on the potter's art than manufacturing science. And part of the art is knowing just how the clay will shrink and distort in the 1200-degree heat of the kilns. And after that, every toilet has to pass the exacting British standard flushing test.
British BS ball, a British standard ball, that's a certain diameter, weight, that's a laid down standard.
So this is a simulated stool?
Something like that.
It's a jobby?
Yeah, I'm going to drop it in.
How many balls can it take?
That has to pass that test 4 times out of 5.
But how many balls at a time?
No, only one.
Just the one?
Just the one BS ball.
Very small bowl.
The only thing is, I think that a consumer watching us do this would think, that's nothing like the real thing.
Well, that is the BS test.
But I mean, don't you agree? They don't often arrive looking like that, do they?
Well, I must agree with that, yeah.
I bet that costs a fortune, does it? Because it's the specification.
This is a stool dummy like you get in car tests.
12 sheets is the standard.
This is Paul Williams, our designer.
Nice to meet you. Hi, Paul. Nice to meet you. Hi.
Where do you want us?
Paul Williams is Shires' one-man design department, working directly to Charles.
Great.
This is a critical project for Shires. The new toilet is their most important development for 5 years. They're investing £250,000 in it. What's more, Charles is committed to launching it in just a year's time. He already has a detailed design spec.
The market, modern classic suite with a hint of revival, a little bit of hybrid, not totally modern, but there has to be that little sort of classical style.
Okay, can I ask Paul a question? Do you agree, Paul, with what the statement Charles has made about modern classic with Hinter Revival? I know he's your boss, so you have to be careful.
Oh, no,
It's something that's really strong, this traditional feel in the bathrooms.
So what you're
I
actually
think a
saying
good
is
example is this. I think this is.
you don't
the
want it to
suite
be
that really
overtly modern.
No.
No.
But
But it
yeah,
doesn't mean to say it has to have a hint of revival, though, does it? Maybe,
Oh, it does.
maybe we're just talking about...
I think we're really talking about the same thing here. I mean,
Well, I hope so.
The point I'd like to make is I'm a bit disappointed, actually. I'm a bit disappointed because it doesn't seem to be ambitious in any way. Not in any way. It's still within the constraints of what you know is completely possible. But what we should be doing, in my opinion, is that we should be swinging towards benefits, not features. You sell them as features if you want, but that we have to improve the breed. The bog's got to be better. The bath has got to be better. There's no reason why you can't have something that you go, wow, that is absolutely lovely, which is actually what you want, and then go, and it is worth £1,000. In fact, it's worth more than £1,000.
head turners are no use. Putting a suite
No,
in
I
a
had to,
front.
and then that I can sell on,
It
and I
is
can
no.
get
It
£1,000.
has to be.
you're
This
assuming-
is a commercially realistic brief. I want a stunning suite which is going to sell.
Thank you. Can I write this down?
You can indeed.
Right.
As long as it
I
sells.
would like.
It has to sell.
Richard and Dick explore the toilet market in a bathroom showroom in London. But despite variations in styling,
God, look, it's the suite from hell, Mummy. What's going on here? And this is the Brussels sprout suite.
there's nothing here that is fundamentally different. Richard and Dick are convinced that the key to a successful loo is a better loo. But will they be able to persuade Shires?
Do we understand what they've asked us to do, and do we agree with it?
We understand what they've asked us to do, and we don't agree with it. What's the statement here? The modern classic suite with a hint of revival.
Right.
Where I think a lot of this is bound up is there seems to be a confusion between what Charles calls design and what we call design.
There's that great thing about loads of design.
Yeah,
he didn't say loads of design, he said lots of design. Lots of design, yeah. Where more design is more decoration, more curlicues and, you know, more features. He used the word features quite a lot at the expense of benefits, and we didn't see many benefits. I must say, I like the idea of a kind of super clean, I don't know what it would be like, but where the dimension at the bottom is actually narrower than the bog. You get this sort of very modern, slightly poised look to the whole thing. It's like a Macintosh chair, you know, sort of.
I think there's lots of opportunities in the flush side. One thing we could do is maybe put the flush through the seat.
To the seat, yeah.
So that the water comes through, and we could then very, very
interesting idea,
effectively organise the spray so that we can make it do whatever we want. We could give a sort of swirly Coanda effect sort of thing, or we could direct the jets. The only problem with that is
Blokes lifting the seat again.
blokes lifting the seat and hosing their trousers down.
Yeah. You could bring it through the hinge into the seat,
Yeah.
and all you'd need is a valve, just like a standard gas tap valve, so that when the seat was up, no water would come through it, but when it was down, it would. Is there anything in that? Sprung seat?
That'd be great fun with a rubber duck.
You press a pedal with your foot, wallop, the seat
But
comes up.
a pedal?
A pedal for the
A
flush.
pedal? What about a pedal for the
Let's
flush?
just get the sort of coatings and, you know...
All the kitchenware is non-stick. It's been like that for bloody years.
So you're thinking non-shit stick,
Non-stick, yeah, non-shit stick. But if you...
PTFE coatings or something
PTFE
like that.
is a possibility. I don't know if it's up to the job, but I mean, the idea of having a loo that was a stay clean loo, for
Right,
instance,
sorry, I'll write it down in a second.
has got to be.
What about, you know, the seat men versus women issue?
Yes, the loo seems to have been designed specifically for sitting on. One of the things, I mean, obviously when a guy gets up, standing up, he's going to have a wee, he's got to aim at what's effectively this condensed ellipse there. Couldn't we come up slightly at the back here, like that? So we're not producing a urinal as such. Something like this.
Swat. That's good, that's good.
I think.
For Richard and Dick, the design of any product starts with how people use it. Fortunately for toilet behaviour, there is one seminal reference work. It contains detailed measurements of every aspect of urination and defecation. The author of this study and acknowledged world expert on the subject is Professor Alexander Kira. He's very critical of conventional toilet design, especially for men.
A man has got to make a very difficult choice. Do you sit back so that you avoid touching the front of the bowl with your penis and then take the risk of soiling the whole back of the bowl? Or do you move forward to avoid that, and now you've got a problem with the penis?
Professor Kira has studied the toilet habits of hundreds of volunteers over the past 40 years. His modified squat posture gives more effective evacuation and can be achieved on a conventional loo. But for him, the main design flaw of the toilet is splashback. Current toilet bowls create a conical pattern of splash depending on the force of the stream and the angle of the surfaces, and men themselves make it worse.
Many, many men don't want to be heard when they're urinating. And so that causes a problem, because then you try to aim for not the water, but the side or the back or something. And of course, that's a bit iffy, because do you really make it, or you end up missing it somehow? I mean, there are improvements that can be made without very much trouble, and I think should be made without very much trouble.
But although his work has been publicly available for 30 years, no manufacturer has yet taken it into account.
So one of the things that we've been interested in doing is, if you take this as a relatively standard bowl, it's configured for sitting on rather than for a man to pee into. We tried to raise up the back of the pan here so that we provide a bigger target area for people to pee into. Okay, so it's a kind of combination urinal loo.
It could work very well. That's part of what I proposed originally too.
Right.
Not only that, but it's a matter of which way is it working. Because what you don't want to do is to be peeing against the slope.
Splashback.
The splashback, exactly.
Richard and Dick developed the best of their ideas. A loo with men in mind, an easy clean coating, and a more accurate and effective flush. But what will Shires make of it? Charles, Paul and the manufacturing team are about to hear the ideas for the first time.
You're talking about technical innovations here.
No, I'm talking about consumer understandable benefits.
The self-cleaning toilet and the self-cleaning basin. Yeah, there's possibilities. We could design products with that sort of...
Why don't you?
With that sort of... I don't think people are prepared to pay for it.
No, hang on a minute. Now, you don't know what it costs yet to make a lavatory that nothing sticks to, because you haven't tried it.
Do you know of a non-stick material we can use for toilets?
We know of one non-stick material. We don't know whether it's suitable for toilets yet, but hang on a sec. What we're talking about is start with a consumer need, yeah, and then draw the technology towards you.
There's a lot of nice, exciting, original stuff there. For example, the flushing lids. Now that is an original system, totally new, and it needs a long time to develop it. And I don't realistically see it happening for this particular exercise.
Really?
It means a totally different design of closet.
The timescale we've got, our backs are really against the wall from day one.
We do.
They are. And we've got to try and stick with a lot of proven practices. There's things there that are very exciting, but they're going to take a long time to develop.
The other areas, the closet-type urinal, that's a lovely idea, that is again something that we couldn't do immediately. It'd be a totally different mechanism.
But what you're saying is, we can't do it because we haven't got the horsepower. But we love the idea. And what I'm saying is, you can do it. You can do it, but you need additional horsepower to do it. Yeah? You've got finite resource. Yeah? But this ain't rocket science, is it? Not really. As a designer, if somebody says to me, this can't be done, it pisses me right off. And the very first thing I then think about is why. I absolutely don't concede that things like the male-female loo concept is something that you just cannot do in this amount of time. That's what design is about. It's about confronting an obstacle and finding a way through it, around it, over the top of it. And so that is a challenge. So the best thing those guys could have actually done was to have sat in the meeting and said, well, we don't think it's possible, because that is lighting the blue touch paper.
If there's anything new in toilet technology, it'll be here, in Japan. Richard and Dick have come to see if there are developments which could be useful for their mission to fundamentally improve the toilet and to persuade shires to take a more radical approach.
You should always think of a designer as a radar scanner. He's someone who's going around all the time, soaking up different cultures, different products, different things. And in our trips to Japan in the past, we've noticed that it's radically different here and different things happen. We should expect to see very different things. Gay photo.
Come again.
What?
The Japanese are renowned for their love of high-tech electronics, and their toilets are no exception.
Electronic is, it's incredible that you find these things in a sort of hi-fi shop.
More shower toilet でなきゃしたくない。快感突き上げる洗浄力。
Toilets here have more electronic features than a top-of-the-range limo. Automatic lids, built-in deodorizers, and heated seats. They have electronic noise machines to mask any embarrassing sounds, with a warning light to show how much longer you've got. There is continual innovation. Toilets that wash and blow-dry you after use, and even ones that have a built-in pulsing action for massage.
Now, so what?
What's the purpose of the massage? Was that an indiscreet question?
So, people who have difficulty, constipation.
Oh, really?
All right.
Yeah, sort of.
It stimulates evacuation.
One of the reasons why washlet became so popular in Japan was that quite a lot of Japanese have hemorrhoid. Already in Japan, 40% of the whole Japanese...
Really? 40% of the population have hemorrhoids?
Have washlets.
Oh, washlets.
ウォシュレットがあるわけね。ウォシュレットがあるわけですね。
Fantastic.
This is a toilet that warms your bottom, washes your bottom, massages your bottom, dries your bottom, takes the smells away.
Keeps the room warm.
Oh, keeps the room warm. So all we need now is a toilet that goes to the toilet for you.
Done.
There's a Lamborghini Diablo of the toilet world. Can it do anything else?
This ultimate toilet was developed by the world's largest toilet manufacturer, Toto. 2,000 kilometers south of Tokyo in Fukuoka is Toto's research department. It's here that new ideas are developed and tested.
So what is this?
Yes, it's testing material made of the soybeans with polystyrene. Polystyrene, yes, polystyrene.
This is the stuff you make miso soup out of?
Yes.
Right.
And why do you have the polystyrene to make a buoyancy?
Yes,
Floating.
Yeah.
Floating, okay.
That's really good, yeah. So, okay.
Very realistic.
Yeah.
Great job. You've done that before.
And then you put some paper?
Yes.
Wow. Good God. That's 1.5 meals.
Okay.
Well, it did it.
Now that's what I call a test. So this is where we're going to see the test, the demonstration.
And among the innovations in Toto's laboratories is one that Richard and Dick are delighted to find. It's being field tested in the employee washroom. A microbiological coating on the ceramic which kills bacteria and loosens waste so it flushes away without staining.
It's very clean.
It's very clean. You can see how clean
So
it
this is a paint finish?
On the surface, there's a coating above the glazing.
On top of the glaze, so it's
Yeah.
the top surface. Okay. And
okay, so if we compare it with the one that hasn't.
Enzymes in the coating digest bacteria and leave the surface slippery so that it doesn't stain.
There'll be no stickness.
Okay. How long does how long does it last? How long will it stay on the surface?
Forever?
Forever.
Yes.
Wow.
Sounds like a fantastic invention.
The best thing that we can bring back to shires is how we know they respond already is somebody out there is already doing it. That's part of the shire's dynamic to date, is getting the confidence from knowing that somebody else is doing it. Now, I think Dick and I would find it extraordinary if shires didn't actually know.
I can't believe they don't know.
This is going on.
I mean, if they don't know, they should be shot. Because it's their business to know about what's happening in their own industry. So, and it's been out there for several years. Let's find out.
To our delight and amazement while we were out in Japan, we found the biggest manufacturer going gung-ho on surface coatings that actually do the job. Photocatalytic materials, bactericidal coatings that work forever and do the job. But it just goes to prove that if you start by the thought and then you go hunting for the technology, you know, you may
see whether, I mean, does it actually just kill the germs, or does it actually stop marks being left in toilet bowls?
It loosens it, but when it kills, it actually loosens the growth off the side, so it washes away.
With their research complete, Richard and Dick are presenting their ideas to Shire's managing director, Ron Lasseter.
Towards the rear, it sweeps up and it's very smooth down the back to give us basically a larger target when the man stands up. It's effectively a vestigial urinal. This bowl here is rimless. There is no flushing rim at all. And what we then do is to put the flush itself into the seat.
And as well as their innovative ideas, they also present their vision of the style the new loo should be.
Form here, so very slim across this axis down here, maybe quite broad across the back. We call this the Macintosh chair when we're sketching it because of this very, very long, slim form.
Where do you find the difference between gimmicky and design?
It's easy. It's benefits. If there's a benefit to the consumer, it's not a gimmick. It's simple as that.
Providing they're prepared to pay for it.
Yeah.
I think There were some very positive ideas here, Alex, weren't there? And really, it is purely a case of time, just at this moment in time, and that we just cannot drive them forward to a stage where we could perhaps integrate them into the inline suite for next year.
But Richard and Dick are convinced that there is time to do something radical. They invite Paul down to London to work with them on the design. In the studio, Dick and Paul work out how to include some of the innovative ideas into an overall slim design.
A tiny bit of curve on that. It stops it looking quite so constructed. Yeah. And maybe do the same here. I mean, it would look great, wouldn't it?
Yeah. That's really starting to work.
Yeah. I don't know, to my eye, that looks, I'm interested in what you think, that looks modern, that looks elegant, you know. It may be a bridge too far for Shires, you know. I can imagine Charles looking at that and saying, oh, I can't get my head around this at all, you know.
Yeah.
Did you have any luck with the men's anti-P thing?
It's drawn in, but I've not really explored it in depth at the moment. I'm not unsure how it would run into the system.
Technically, if you cast a piece which is just your classic box rim in the normal way, yeah?
Yeah.
But it goes down there like that, so when it joins on the loo, to make the completed thing, it's giving you that anti-splash thing. But I'd like by the end of the day to get to that.
No problem.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good, great.
But the design still has to be approved by Charles. A week after his visit, Paul reports back.
We're trying to evolve now a definite style that we can work around and maybe incorporate some of these features.
Did you feel the brief has been changed slightly? To me, there's a more modern feel to all of that. There isn't that sort of hint of revival that I was
London, I did feel that the brief
for.
was changing.
Yeah.
Just from the initial discussions that we'd had with Richard and Dick.
And Alex is concerned that the design will be too complicated to manufacture reliably and might reduce output per man or lead to failures during firing.
We look at a pot and say, well, how would we make a mould to produce that? How would we design the mould? How would we spray it? How would we fire it? And these are the sort of things that we are thinking ahead to try and plan as to how we design the particular mould to make the pot.
The pressure is mounting. Because of the time it takes to produce the toilet, there's now only a few weeks left to finalise the design. After discussions with Charles, Paul has had to modify the design of the toilet and the basin that will go with it. In a few hours, he will show the scale drawings to Richard and Dick and get Alex's reaction.
Frankly, I'm concerned about, first of all, this area here, for example. This area will be prone to spreading with the weight of the actual pot itself. It will spread and distort depending.
So what happened to the male-female loo in the sorting process?
We looked at the hump, so to speak, in the back of the urinal type bowl, and also the flushing toilet seat as well as the flush activating toilet seat. We actually think that some of these are good ideas, but technically at this moment in time I think they're fraught with danger, and it's not something we would want to develop over a period of a year. We would want to obviously develop it from a manufacturing point of view as well as a technical point of view.
What about the gents loo? What were the problems with that?
The male-female loo.
The male-female loo. What was the immediate problems with that? Because I don't understand them.
A lot of it was really in the flushing function. To get the water up and round the rim again would require a lot of trials, a lot of different configurations, and again time is against us on this particular one. But that again was not discarded. That again is being looked at, but Not for this one.
But we don't yet completely understand why it's being shoved further down the line.
I think this male-female loo, in my mind, and I can't speak on behalf of the other guys here, was the best idea that's come out of our discussions. I can see the benefit. I think it would look great. It's really a question of time.
We understand.
It doesn't matter how good it looks.
There's just one other factor. Is that by the time this television programme comes
we realise that, yes. But we'll be...
Anybody watching this programme is going to know that idea.
Richard will be a year ahead of them, though.
A year ahead at the rate at which you solve your problems at the moment.
Are you suggesting that we're slow?
No, I'm saying that you're inflexible, is what I'm saying. What I'm worried about when you say we must look at it, we will look at it, is I'm anxious that you're not going to look at it.
The thing that really disappoints me, and it isn't what Paul's done, is how much of the things that we talked about before at the last session, the ideas that we were generating, the thoughts that we were creating, have already, even at this stage, moved away from this. And how do I get the feeling, why do I get the feeling that they haven't just moved away, but that they're probably tumbling into a black hole and they're not actually going to be picked up at all?
I think they tend to see things from a pure design point of view rather than taking a full commercial perspective of the problem. And I think this has been part of our difficulty, trying to see eye to eye from that point of view.
The decision is made. Richard and Dick's ideas to make the toilet better get consigned to future development. It seems the new Shire's toilet will not have any of the radical features they suggested. But for Richard and Dick, this is far from the end of what's turning into the Battle of the Loo. Charles has moved on to the next stage of the design process, making full-size polystyrene models. He's made more changes to the style to make the toilet easier to manufacture, and now he just needs the board to rubber stamp the design. Then it will be straight into production.
I would say it's 90% of the way there. We've got some more development. There's just finishing off touches that we really need to do. But like I say, our biggest enemy at the moment is time. My presentation later on this afternoon will be to the board for approval for production development. So this is an important stage. We have got to be certain that this is the right suite, because we're coming very close now to the point of no return.
Richard and Dick are not happy about the changes. They may have lost the battle for their innovative ideas, but they're determined to preserve the poised, tapering style. They have a plan.
Would like some coffee?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Starting off with the cistern still fairly high on there. We were quite square on the cistern, and what we've done is we've rounded it all off. You've got this feature on the front of the cistern which is followed through onto the lid. The foot detail is the latest foot detail there. A second recess on there, just to give us that sort of almost classic column type of look to the foot of the pan.
So what do our friends think?
We've got some other things to show you,
Right,
yeah. So I think maybe we should have that discussion once you've seen those other things.
Okay. Yeah?
Yep.
Richard and Dick have made their own foam models. This is the loo they believe Shires should make. They're convinced that there are ways around the manufacturing problems if Shires can be persuaded that it would be worth it.
We've got the beginnings of the urinal back with its inverse taper in here.
The other thing to watch for, from what Dick's been pointing out, is the simplification of the form. It's become more elegant, but there's less on it. There's less curlicue, there's less twisty-turny, yet it's proportionally purer. You notice that straight away, actually, if you look from one to the other, especially around these rear sections. It's immediately apparent.
Where the Shire's loo has an indentation in the side to help manufacturing, a smaller cistern and an overhanging cistern lid, Richard and Dick have kept the proportions of the tall cistern and the smooth back section. They're small differences, but to them they're crucial. And they've kept the same tapering, poised look for the basin.
Again, if you just look back between this model that we've produced and the others, you can see clearly how that's standing on its foot, whereas this one is balancing like a ballet dancer. This is why many areas in your industry don't move forward, because you go, can't do it. And what are we getting anyway? Until you've got something in your mind that it really is desirable to try and solve the problem, then you will never want to solve the problem.
We're not saying make this and not this. We're simply saying this is where we'd like to be. Now let's do whatever we can to get there. And we may have to accept in the short term something that isn't that, but it's 95% of that.
Well, why can't we do this part now? A flush cistern lid.
It is much cheaper to have a rim, an overhang on the cistern.
Cost, not technical reasons whatsoever.
No, we can do that. We can do that.
I think from a design point of view, there is such a significant difference between that feel and the slimness than where we are at the moment.
Yeah.
What you find in production, as things go through development rather, is that engineers typically make a change on a CAD system one day and another one 2 weeks later and another one 4 weeks later, and they lose sight of the whole, and you can turn Claudia Schiffer into Princess Anne.
Just there's anything wrong with
no, there's anything.
This is pretty close to Claudia Schiffer, and this one may have a little bit too much of Princess Anne at the moment. In a warm, cuddly, toilety sort of way. There goes my OBE.
I think from our side, what I'd like to do is go through each of the shapes and just agree what we think we're going to do in terms of design improvement for the next stage.
It's a setback for Charles. Instead of the green light he was hoping for, he's now got several amendments to make.
It's very easy to design something that looks very stunning, but if it doesn't sell, it really counts for nothing. You've come up with a suite which is no use to anybody, which makes no contribution to the company at all.
With the backing of the board, Richard and Dick have managed to retain their stronger style concept. Now the only problem is to get production to make it, and in this they discover an unexpected convert.
The Seymour Powell designs were so attractive that we set out to stick as close as we could to them. Their style sort of directed us towards the end objective, and that was, yes, we will be able to make it in spite of what you think.
Fired by the designs, Alex and the production team tackle the manufacturing problems. After weeks of trial and error, they rediscover an old technique to cast the toilet bowl hollow, which solves the problem of it being too top-heavy for firing.
How the hell did you get that bit out from inside?
I've had to make those hollow because of the angle, the taper on there.
Right.
I couldn't form that by a back mould without incorporating further loose pieces.
Have you ever done that before?
Yes, I've done it previously.
So has this been a challenge?
Challenge? It's been a real challenge. It's been a bloody headache in truth.
But the narrow foot of the basin pedestal is causing real problems. After several failures, production have come up with their own solution.
It's horrible what's happened to it. What have you done to it?
It's appalling, Charles.
What has happened?
It's just lost all the purity.
Yeah. I mean, why? What's happened?
What's your reaction?
We made some samples of the original pedestal.
It's a lovely pedestal.
Which it's a very, very nice pedestal, but it's created several difficulties in manufacture.
Right.
We've had difficulty maintaining stability. We've had difficulty moving it through the factory.
Because it falls over on the trolleys.
We don't put it on the trolley. We had to carry everyone down by hand like a little baby.
Right.
Yeah.
So you want...
It's been so unstable as it stands that when we've come to spray it, the force of the glaze has even knocked it over.
Right. Can we actually just create a wall that goes down here that sticks out rather than a solid form? Yeah?
Yeah, we could create a wall there that sticks out.
Because I think if it was just a wall as well, that would help. You know, that ran all the way down. And also, for example, if we let this go round the top, as we've done on the basin, and any wall we drop down, however small, will help that. You know?
Yeah.
Before the design finally goes into full-scale production, Charles needs to make sure that people will want to buy it. He takes a new version of the models out for some market testing. He spends a day in 3 of his main retail showrooms, getting consumer reaction to the design.
Excuse me. Good morning. My name's Charles Kiriakou. I'm the marketing manager of Shires. If you'd like to follow me, I'd like to know what your sort of initial views are on the design of that.
It looks streamlined, yeah.
I like the shape. It's lovely. Yeah.
Does it appeal to you?
The toilet doesn't. The toilet system doesn't.
I like the toilet. It's all like compact and everything.
The only thing I immediately jump to is should it be taller than the basin, the cistern? You know, I think something's got to go. Either the basin comes up or the toilet drops down.
Oh, that's interesting.
Have you any idea what ISH actually stands for?
Something, the S stands for sanitary ware or something, but the H is some...
Probably International Sanitary Ware
Platz.
A few weeks later, Richard and Dick catch up with Charles at the toilet event of the year, the International Sanitary Ware Show in Frankfurt.
People liked the general design of the product, but what we did find was that the cistern was too high.
Right.
And we took something like 30 or 40 millimetres off it.
Right.
And I went and did a second batch of research, and we found that the cistern was still too bloody high. So what I've done is I've taken a step to try and ensure that this will be a commercially viable suite.
I have to say, the very thing that you've done, which is lowering the cistern, is one of the key things that would have made this fundamentally different from most of the things here.
Yeah.
You know, but you've brought it back towards the more normal. You know, it's a small step rather than a big step.
And finally, the first toilets start coming off the production line. For Alex, it's a moment of great pride.
We've achieved something that Shires hasn't achieved before. We've stretched the modelling, we've stretched the spraying, we've stretched the casting, and at the end of it, we've come out with a suite which is probably the best Shires has ever done. And the biggest problem with that is how are we going to follow it?
We've worked with Dick and Richard, and they have had an influence. I find it very difficult to quantify what their influence was, but they did have a good, positive influence. We've felt that personally.
But will it be a commercial success? At last, the new suite, called the Icon Suite, is ready to be launched.
Tara, hi. Charles Kiriakou, how are you?
It's Shire's most ambitious launch ever, taking 50 buyers and journalists on a day trip to Paris. It's a critical moment for Charles. What will Bathroom Journal, Heating and Plumbing Monthly and the consumer press think of it?
And our sales force, and set the brief. Design, it was to be a modern, classical suite with a hint of revival. Two of the world's top designers, and that's not an overstatement, Richard Seymour and Dick Powell, were invited to make their contribution to this product. We had our ideas, they had their ideas. There was mutual challenge and occasional disagreement. Remember, ultimately, we have to sell the suite. So, onto the product attributes of this suite. This suite will be a design leader. It possesses style. It has poise. It is elegant. A work of art, a linear sculpture, the shape of things to come. I present to you the Icon Suite with Neo Brassware. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I should now like to invite you to view the suite. Thank you.
It's all flat on the top.
Cut it back. You've got like a reverse sculpture at the bottom.
It's sleek, it's elegant, it's got great attention to detail, you followed the lines through.
Well, that was the theme, really, the design theme.
Yes.
The whole shape, the whole elliptical shape of it.
Anybody buying this suite, I reckon, is going to get a pretty damn good product, generally speaking. You know, it looks pretty good. It's in the right price bracket. So many of the things, it's a little bit more expensive than it was intended to be, but basically it's where it should be. But what it hasn't got is, it isn't a better loo. It isn't a better loo. It's a nicer looking loo, but it hasn't got a lot of those smart ideas that we put in. And there would lie the disappointment for me, is that it hasn't actually moved forward in a way in which it could have done.
Complete in line, so it all looks like one piece. Concealed fittings on the back there. I think that looks brilliant.
They could have gone even higher, and they could have produced something which incorporated some of those great ideas that would really have made a difference, because I actually believe, and I'm sure Rich agrees with me, that consumers actually do want a better loo. They would buy it. It would be more successful.